Keeping the conversation local in Nigeria, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria has projected that the pump price of petrol in Nigeria would rise to between 700 naira and 800 naira per litre if the incoming administration finally deregulates the downstream petroleum sector and abolishes the wasteful subsidy regime. The National Operations Controller of IPMAN, that's Mike Osatuye, also predicted that the volume of petrol consumed in the country daily may also drop to about 40 million litres from the 60 to 70 million litres reported by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. He urged Nigeria's President-elect Bola Tinubu to deregulate the downstream sector and remove petrol subsidy as he had promised during his campaigns. Well, Rise analyst Dayo Shobowale joins us now to discuss this. Welcome to the program. It's always great to have you, Mr. Shobowale.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, getting straight into it, looks like the subsidy is going to go, without a doubt. But the question is that there's all of this conversation is happening, but yet to be details or insight into conversation about palliatives. Now, I'm curious to know from you, because if this is done immediately, of course, it spells short-term trouble, although it's for a long-term good.
Wow.
What are the palliatives you would like to see being put in place in order for this to actually be?
First of all, comment on the timing of this announcement. The Minister of Finance has already announced that this administration will deregulate the industry before it leaves. And then for some people to come and put a price of 700 naira per litre and ask the incoming administration to implement it is to give that administration political hemlock to commit political suicide. But then, you see, this news emanated from a conference of so-called stakeholders who are marketers, people in the upstream and downstream industry. And my own analysis is that they suggested 750 per litre. Petrol is selling out for 185. See, 185 to 750, it is ludicrous. They might as well say that they don't expect or want the government to deregulate, because that's a very unrealistic price. Normally, if you have a deregulated petrol price, you have a ceiling. You get me? They determine the lowest they want to sell, but there's always a ceiling, which is what is happening now. Some stations sell at 250, and people buy. Some sell at 300, people buy. But the petrol is available, which is the important thing. But then, having said that, you see, look at the problems of the industry. What led to a situation whereby when we export, we get dollars, we just subtract money, NMPC subtract money to pay for petroleum imports, and the rest of the country shares that, which is not good enough. And which is why, for government to be able to do what it has to do, the thing has to be deregulated. Now, talking of palliatives, yes, the palliatives will come when there is a realistic price. Yes, you can't put the cart before the horse. They will come when there is a realistic price. Fortunately, and when certain things are done to make sure that you don't need to import. You have refineries. You get me? You have refineries in Kaduna, you have in Warri, you have in Port Harcourt. And Dangote is coming on board with what is called a modular sort of refinery, which does not require pipelines, because people are vandalizing pipelines. That's why NMPC said it has closed down production in many places. But then the good news is that some Nigerians are patriotic enough to know what to do. The former chief of naval staff at that same conference said those who steal from the pipelines and those who steal our oil should be shot as a deterrent. Okay, like I said, Dangote is coming on board. A minister of state at that same conference said that since the president gave the order that they should deal with oil thieves, that the number of barrels you have per day has increased from about 900 million barrels per day to about 1.5 million per day, which is, these are developments in the right direction. But the essential thing is we must put our house in order. Those refineries must be rehabilitated and put back to work so they work at maybe 80% capacity. So we don't have to be swelling all our resources to import fuel. It's the suicidal. But then there's a political or social cost to it. And that is the crux of the matter. If they increase this price to 750, you know what will happen? There'll be protests. Although Nigerians don't have a stomach for protest. Unlike what is going on in Israel now, what is going on in France. In Israel, something that doesn't concern the common man, but it's about democracy. Legal reforms, they're on the street. The same thing in France, pensions, they're on the street. But the government in those places are strong governments. They are not bending to the will of the protesters. They are going ahead with their policy. But in Nigeria here now, if we have a strong government, and then you see, you can't say Tinubu will be a strong government because it's just coming in. He has campaigned on this thing. I mean, and you know what is going on now. So let us see what happens when the Buhari administration, before it leaves, removes it. Let's see the reaction of Nigeria. Then we go on from there.
Yeah, Mr. Shobowale, I mean, this is obviously going to come into fruition by the end of this current administration. And I have to say, the agitation of a lot of Nigerians, and rightfully so, is the fact that this will further stoke inflation. This will increase economic hardship, and it will generally make the life of Nigerians much, much harder. Now, how can the incoming administration handle this? I mean, you have spoken about the former chief of staff who said, they should be shot, but that would be allowing judicial killings. We of course don't want that. What can the incoming administration do, because this will soon be the reality of Nigerians?
Look, like I said, you don't put the cart before the horse. Tinubu has not even claimed his mandate. Let this administration do what it has to do, because they said they will do it before May 29th. Let's see. You see, those stakeholders, the topic of their discussion was deregulation the day after. I tell you, there will be no day after if there is deregulation and the price of fuel is 700 naira. It is just not on. So essentially, it is anti-people, but for a government that can seize money from Nigerians and not allow them access to fuel at election time, I think this government has the nerve to do it. How it can control the social upheaval that will arise from it is another matter. But then, don't be too scared about it. Nigerians don't take to the streets easily. Everybody looks at the government and they find how to make ends meet and cut corners. You get me? So I don't anticipate an upheaval as such.
We certainly don't anticipate it. We don't pray for it. But of course, one does remember back to the Jonathan administration when Occupy Nigeria was one of the biggest protest movements that we've seen in recent history here in Nigeria. And in Tinubu's campaign promises, he had said that he will remove the subsidy unfailingly, and he added, even if there are protests. He did include that in his speech. Now, here's my question, because I know, we're talking about 750, it's too high, it's this and it's this. But at the end of the day, deregulating means let it be determined by market forces. That's what it means. Yes. So can we have a conversation about how the subsidy hurts Nigeria? Speak of deregulation and then say, but the deregulated price is too high. Isn't that us having our cake and eating it? Don't we have to pick a struggle?
No, see, the obvious reaction, I said deregulating at 750 is like political hemlock.
But it's market, if that's market price.
That means that will be the end of that government. That is
but if it's market price.
What do you mean by market price? Affordability has to be there. And people's welfare has to be taken into consideration. So if you increase oil price to 750 naira, a lot of industry will collapse. There will be inflation. People will not be able to pay school fees. Transport will not be available. You get me? What they are saying is that the palliatives, they plan the palliatives will be used for this. But what of the socio-economic costs and political upheaval that will ensue from that increase?
So Shobowale, in your opinion, because I mean we are talking about deregulation, but we need to start thinking about the future. What is the way forward for competitive energy policies, programs, and positioning of the country to make sure that Nigeria, when it comes to energy, is competitive among other countries?
Yes, we go back to where we started. We have our refineries functioning before. Kaduna, Warri. Let us revive them. If we revive them, we don't need to be importing. If they work at minimum capacity, even that will reduce the dollar, and that will release money for us to take care of our people in terms of welfare. That's the essence of democracy. Democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people, putting food on the table for the people, not leading them astray, making them suffer, not meeting their wants and needs, and making them live in penury and poverty. This has been a lot of Nigerians for years, even though we are neck deep in oil. That should be reversed. That is what the regulation should do, but at minimum social cost.
Thank you
Minimum
so much.
social costs. Mr. Dayo Shobowale, it's always a pleasure having you and having your insights shared here on Newsday.